One of my greatest passions has always been learning languages. In a household with a bilingual mother and a trilingual father, I was in an environment where speaking multiple languages was common and somewhat the norm. My father speaking French, Spanish, and English, and my mother speaking Spanish and English. Now, my passion and interest grew as I realized the skills and the gifts that come with being able to speak multiple languages. So I decided that I was going to learn my first truly foreign language after having learned French and Spanish. Spanish was a language that I basically grew up with, while French was one that I wasn't very familiar with until high school. And I decided in high school, around beginning of sophomore year, that I would learn Portuguese. This actually began more towards the end of my freshman year, but I was really passionate about Portuguese, mostly because of my passion for Brazilian culture, which started, especially with, I was very intrigued by Brazilian music. With this quarantine, I've really taken advantage of a lot of my free time to really improve my Portuguese. And now I believe that my proficiency is much more adequate now to start considering myself to be quadrilingual. And I have found that learning these languages is really a passion. I've been interested in learning Italian for quite a while. It's just that Brazilian culture really attracted me. So I decided I would learn Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, prior to learning Italian. But I've learned that there are many individuals who also have this passion for learning languages, and one of them is my friend Omarion Perez, and I'm going to have him here today for an interview. I'm really excited about this. I hope you all enjoy it, and hopefully it gives a little bit of insight into the thought process and interests of individuals who are multilingual. Thanks. ¿Qué onda? Soy Sebastián y este podcast es Otomi. For all of my non-Spanish native speakers, this is Sebastian, and I'm a high school student in the Bay Area. I've got the facts and the opinions. Join me as we discuss topics of society, culture, identity, education, and life. I'm here with Omarion Perez. We met each other in HSF, which was the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. We were part of the YLI, Youth Leadership Institute, where we got to know each other, and there they really walked us through the college application process. One thing about us, a similarity that really stuck out, was the fact that both of us are multilingual, and Omarion has a pretty interesting backstory. So Omarion, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Okay, hi, I'm Omarion Perez. I'm 17 years old. I'm a rising senior in high school, and I'm Afro-Latino. So what that entails is basically I'm half African American and half Mexican. So my father was born in Mexico, and my mom was born here in the U.S. and she's Black. So I don't know. Basically, like, trying to gather my thoughts. Basically, I've grown up like my entire life on my mother's side. Basically, with my mother's side, I've grown up in Springfield, Illinois, and that was after she had moved back from Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I was like conceived, and that was where my older brother, my middle brother, where he was born too. So he has the same father as me, and then my oldest brother has a different father. But after moving back from Phoenix, my mother had me, and ever since then, we really haven't had any contact with my father's side ever since. I've never met any of them, or I've never I've gotten to talk with my grandmother and a few aunts and stuff from here and there on Facebook, but Nothing like in person, nothing like, meeting them and getting to know them. So that was that. And then I guess, I guess because of that, for my entire life, I've been, from, okay, trying to get it together. So I guess because of that, um, like my entire life, I've wanted to learn Spanish, I guess, because I've always had knowledge of, my Mexican background and my Latino heritage, but I've never really been connected to it because I've always grown up around my mother's family, and I've always grown up around just Black people. And yeah, my city is kind of, it's diverse, but like kind of our scene has always been like around, Black people and African Americans. So, I've never felt a void, or I never felt like any discrepancy with growing up around my mother's side and around African American people. There was never like avoiding it. I was actually kind of grateful in some ways. I don't know. Yeah, I've never felt like a need to like kind of stray away from that, or I've never felt out of place with growing up around African Americans, because those are my people. Basically, those are my people, just the same as much as Mexicans and Latin Americans are my people. So there was never a void with that, but there was always, I guess there was always a need to like kind of connect a little bit, like kind of connect to my other side. So um, basically, I guess that connection, or wanting that connection, was through just learning Spanish. And throughout my life, I've never really had anything to like to teach myself Spanish. I've never known about any resources. I mean, I knew about Rosetta Stone, but Rosetta Stone, that cost money, and I wasn't just going to do it. There was no need, there was no urgency to learn Spanish. But ever since middle school, ever since like the middle of seventh grade, when I had come across Duolingo, um, that's when I really started to that's when I really started to get into it. And that's when I really started to kind of reconnect, even if it was only through Spanish and not through um, and not just through culture, stuff like that. So I would say at the end of eighth grade, yeah, at the end of eighth grade was when I guess, when I considered myself fluent. Um, because by then I had spent like a year and a half learning Spanish, and I was kind of like really, um, I was really like on it, I guess. I was really on it because it was middle school and I didn't have any really responsibilities other than homework and stuff like that. So, by the end of eighth grade, I kind of considered myself fluent. But then I also asked myself, I guess Spanish was also like a gateway to learning other languages. So I kind of asked myself, because once I was done with Spanish, I was kind of just done with Spanish. There's still a lot to teach myself. There's still a lot to learn. Um, but it wasn't stuff that I had to like kind of, preoccupy myself with. It wasn't too much. So I asked myself, if I can learn Spanish, why not try any of these other languages? Because, languages is like hearing other people speak like different languages and foreign languages. It's always like intrigued me, but there was no need to learn them. I guess there was no desire, or there was no passion there before. Um, so I tried learning a few other languages, but they wouldn't really like come to me um, as fast as Spanish did. Like French. I guess I would say like in the middle of my eighth grade year, I tried learning French with Duolingo, um, and ever since then up until like my sophomore, up until this year, French I've always had like a love-hate relationship with French, and it was just never something that would come to me, but I wanted to learn it because I loved like its rhythm and I loved how it sounded basically.
Yeah. And could you
So
tell us what are the languages? You speak 5 languages, correct? Could you tell us
yeah.
what those 5 languages are?
Well, the first three that I'm fluent in English, Spanish, and German. Um, and then the last two, which I consider myself I speak, are French and Swahili, but those are kind of like conversational languages as of right now.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not fluent, but if I was
Okay.
put in, yeah, if I was put in that environment with French or Swahili speakers, I would be able to communicate.
Okay. And what did they offer Spanish classes? Because you said you did that in middle school. Did they offer them at your school, or did you do it at home?
They never offered any foreign language classes at my middle school. So I just taught myself at home with Duolingo. That was the only resource that I had. But then once I got to high school, then they started, because my high school offers Spanish, German, French, and Latin. So.
Okay. And so I'm guessing you took German at your school? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why because German, I hear, is very difficult to learn, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. With that, with that, I expected myself going into high school. I expected just to take Spanish because I was just, in my mind, I was like, it was going to be an easy A and I was just going to get through it, no problem. But then the first day when when I had met my Spanish teacher and we were kind of doing like an introduction into the class and she was speaking Spanish, it was like, I understand it and I understood and I knew everything that she was saying. And then the other students didn't, and they were just like, they had like a sense of awe on their face and they were like, wow. And then, but I just didn't have that feeling because I already knew what was going on. I knew what she was saying. And I guess that was just kind of my need for learning kind of taking place, I guess. Because after her lesson or whatever, and when the students were talking, because we didn't have any work, it was still the first day. So when, the students were talking and all that, I kind of went to her and we had a conversation in Spanish. I had a conversation with her in Spanish, and I just kind of told her that, I kind of want a foreign language class where I'll actually learn something and I won't just be repeating just, everything, just being repetition, especially me still, studying some Spanish at home. So, she recommended me that, and at first I didn't even have any real need to learn German. I never really had any interest in it, but she had recommended me German because of the German teacher. My freshman German teacher, his name is Mr. Schweikart, and he's definitely one of the best foreign language teachers at my school. He doesn't work there anymore. But she said he was a really good teacher, and he practices immersion, which is basically just speaking the language in class and not speaking English, not speaking anything else other than German. So she recommended that to me, and I took her up on that. So what was the story? So it wasn't the day after that. It was the afternoon, like when school had ended, and like what Kumon is?
Isn't that like some tutoring place
Yeah, it's like a tutoring place for like math and reading. So I was going there and I was like, just to get my work. It didn't last long though. It was and they were just looking for, mastery, and I just wasn't looking for that. So I had dropped that. But Kumon, I had went there to go get my work, and I found my freshman dean. Her daughter went to Kumon also, so she was there. So then that evening we had sat down in the Kumon meeting, like in the waiting room, I guess. We had sat down with each other and we had just figured out how I was going to change my schedule, and because she had a computer with her. So she changed around my schedule so I could fit German in there, and then I dropped Spanish. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And at that point, I didn't know anything. I didn't know any German. I didn't know, I didn't speak a lick of German, basically. But after that first year had ended of me taking German, I guess I would say I wasn't fluent in German, but I was conversational. And he taught, and I'm very grateful for my freshman German teacher because he taught me a lot. Like he taught all of us a lot. And you know how people say that in foreign language classes in high school you don't really learn anything, you don't retain much information. But he has such like a unique and great style of teaching that I was able to I guess learn German and be able to speak it at least somewhat fluently. And then after that first, go ahead.
I feel like part of it also is your own volition and your will and determination to learn the language, because I know a lot of people, they just take it because it's a requirement, and in the end, they don't retain the language because they're not interested. That's why I think it's important to learn a language you're interested in. And so you said you didn't speak any German at all. So did you start in like German 1? And I'm guessing if you start in German 1 next year, you're taking AP German, or did you take that last year? Did you like skip a year?
No, for the first year, well, I mean, depending on skill, like our classes at my school, like the hierarchy of our classes, it doesn't matter what skill level you're at. You have to take like a prerequisite course to get this course, and then you have to
Oh,
take that course. Yeah. So the first year I took, it was German 1. And then the next year, my sophomore year, I had to take German 2. And then my junior year, which we just got done with, I took honors German, which is German 3. And then this upcoming year, which is will be my final year in high school, I'll be taking AP German, so German 4.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's similar to what we have at our school. So when I went into high school, I decided to learn French. Well, I had already spoken. I took like basically a year of French in my middle school because they offered it, but it was horrible. They didn't really teach anything. And my dad speaks French, so he taught me. I like pronunciation wise, I think he helped me a lot with that, and also some words. But he didn't really, because he speaks Spanish and my mom speaks Spanish, so Spanish was like the main thing we used to communicate, and English. So I decided to take French. Also, my parents were like, "You have to take French," and I had a similar experience to you in that. I went into French 1 my first year, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start fresh and learn all the basics. But it was so easy. And then I did French 2 the year after, and I was like, okay, this isn't getting any better. So I ended up skipping French 3 honors, which is like the next level. I did it over the summer because the teacher approved of it, and then I went directly this year into AP French, and it was pretty easy too. French for me, I feel like it's easy because grammatically it has that, Latin Romance language structure, much like
Yeah.
Spanish. But then linguistically, a lot of the vocabulary is very similar to English, and obviously that's the result of the conquest by the Normans in Britain and everything. And like a third of English is French, so that makes it a lot easier. And I personally think it might be easier to learn French, at least from a grammatical standpoint, for an English speaker than it may be Spanish. The pronunciation is hard, but grammatically, I think that some things are easier. But I see that you said that for you it was harder to learn French than was Spanish. So how did and you've used Duolingo for all of these languages, right? Other than German, maybe.
Yeah, I used German. Well, I didn't use Duolingo as extensively for German because I was still learning it in the classroom, and I was still you know basically getting my foot in German in class at school. But I still use Duolingo, to touch upon some things because in class we did have to speak with the teacher. We did have to, participate. We did have to speak German. So using Duolingo for German really did help me basically with speaking and with listening, like listening comprehension and stuff like that.
Okay. And what criteria do you have for like deciding whether you're fluent in a language or conversational? Because for me, I consider myself fluent in Spanish, French, and English, and then conversational or maybe a little bit more advanced than that, but in Portuguese. So I was wondering how you have a criteria for that.
Yeah, fluency is very like it's kind of like a gray area. It's not black and white. You don't, what I mean. Like fluency is just very, I guess, opaque, and it's just like, it depends on what your definition of fluency is. So basically, what my definition of fluency is, I think fluency basically, and this might sound kind of weird, but like how I practice my languages, because in my city, and basically in my state in general, there's not many people who speak foreign languages other than other than the first generation Americans with parents who came from Mexico and Colombia and stuff like that. They speak Spanish, but they rarely speak Spanish outside of the home. So there's really no one to speak foreign languages, but there's no one to practice with. So at home, I kind of just like talk to myself, and I just like, I don't know. It's just like, I guess talking to yourself is kind of therapeutic, and it's just something, yeah. So,
yeah, I know what you mean. I do that a lot, definitely. One way that I really learned languages, in addition to like, I bought books, because for me, Duolingo, it's free and it's a really good app, but I feel like it's sometimes a little slow paced. Like the progression is kind of frustrating because I'm like, okay, I already know the colors. I want to go faster. So for me, I'd say the biggest thing for me, Portuguese was kind of easy to pick up, just because first of all, it's very similar to Spanish. Pronunciation wise, it's different, but grammatically, it's super similar to Spanish because they're, the Iberian Peninsula. They both originated from Old Spanish, so that it explains why. But it's very the music. I've been learning Brazilian Portuguese, not European Portuguese, but like bossa nova and samba. I really enjoy that music, and by listening to that all the time, like I'm talking hours a day, and picking up a lot of those words, vocabulary words, phrases, that has helped me a lot develop conversational skills, and certain vocabulary that say you wouldn't really find as much in a lot of colloquial terms too, that you wouldn't find in some class that you get online. So I'm wondering how music helps you too in the language.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of like I hear it's very common with foreign language learners, that they learn a lot with movies and music. But personally, it's just not it's not like that for me at all. With music, I never really listened to like Spanish music or German music to like learn the language. I guess with me, it's just, I don't know if it's because I'm like too old now and I'm not like a kid, because kids have very flexible brains, and their neural network is not set. And granted, us as teenagers, our neural network is not set as well, but it's kind of more set than a kid's would be. But going away from that, the music, I just never really relied on it to learn. I mean, with Netflix, like, how Netflix has like the different language settings, I would kind of switch like the audios to Spanish, or I would switch it to German or French sometimes just to practice. And then I had the English subtitles on just to practice like my listening comprehension. But as far as like learning the language I kind of just have to stick to, learning the vocabulary and learning, and, having to teach myself that other than just, listening to music. And music does help, or music, well, it's not really music for me. It's just kind of the movies and the TV shows. But the movies and the TV shows do help with listening comprehension with me, and they do help with kind of like the rhythm and how like native speakers speak with that language. But as far as like with media and music and all of that other stuff, that's just not something that has been very common to me, I guess. But it's very common for the learners in the community as a whole. I just don't get how they do it though.
Okay, yeah. The Netflix has been really useful, I think, because a lot of movies and series, I kind of, it's weird when it's dubbed over in like a different language because the lips don't sync and stuff, but I do that sometimes. A lot of the time I watched this series called 3%, which is like scientific. It's science fiction, and I don't know if it was an amazing series, but the whole point of watching it for me was to pick up the language, and it helped a ton. And also Cidade de Deus, which is a super famous movie, and it's really good. The City of God. It's about Rio de Janeiro, or Rio, and it's just such a good movie. It's probably my favorite movie of all time, and watching these movies really helps you with a lot of understanding people when they speak, because I feel like a lot of people that I know who are in those like Spanish classes, they think that people talk like those audio books, whenever like during the tests, and it's like that's not how it really is. People cut words, people like they cut letters, vowels, they shorten them. With Spanish, for me, Spanish has been easy because I've been listening to it since I was little. So comprehension for me, Spanish has always been a lot easier listening than speaking. And I don't know if that's common for a lot of other people learning languages.
That's opposite for me. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess our learning patterns are like quite opposite. But with Spanish, speaking is way easier for me, and then listening comprehension, because native Spanish speakers do speak really fast. yeah, listening comprehension is like a challenge for me in Spanish. But I think listening comprehension for any language that I speak is kind of a challenge for me, except for English. I mean, in English, sometimes I watch certain TV shows and stuff on Netflix, like Grey's Anatomy, and they always say like certain words, and it's not just like medical terms. It's not like just anything medical that they say because the medical stuff. Yeah, I get the medical stuff because the medical stuff is like I guess I have I'm not saying like I'm a doctor or but I have my background in medical, like with P4 and these other programs that I participated in. But it's not like medical juggler that they say that confuses me. It's like some words, and I guess they just don't pronounce it really well, or it's just something. But I always have to put subtitles on and rewind it. But I don't know. It might be the other languages taken away from English or something. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is sometimes that's what happens with me.
I think our patterns might be a little different just because of the way we developed languages. Like listening to these languages, Spanish, French. For me, French is easy. Like now at this point, I'd say listening is kind of the same as speaking, but my Spanish I've been more comfortable listening because my mom always communicating to me in Spanish all the time. It's I basically understand everything when people speak to me in Spanish, but when I have to speak myself, sometimes it used to be harder. And I realized that issue. I started self-studying around like 2 years ago, realizing I had started French. And I was like, okay, there's a lot more. I want to know more about the grammatical structures in Spanish because I knew it, but it was stuff that I just learned orally. I wasn't really good at speaking. Writing. I wasn't very good at writing. Speaking, I was okay. I needed some work on some certain, like I was kind of struggling with rolling my R's. So I just practiced that and now it's super easy. But something that I struggled with also was, it wasn't really the verb because I know some people struggle with the different verb tenses, like especially in the past. And for me, like I never did because I always knew when to say estaba and estuve. So it's not like for me that was hard, but
it's all a pattern basically.
Yeah, and I guess that for me, studying more was just my goal was to have be more confident basically when I'm speaking, because a lot of the time when all you've learned is virtually just, it's not memorization, but it's from all of what you've taken away from every interaction you've had with people who speak Spanish. You haven't literally read a book that says this is the rule for this is the rule for that. Instead, you haven't internalized those rules. And for me, sometimes I wasn't as confident speaking because I was saying, okay, is that right? Is that exactly how you're supposed to say it? I kind of forgot. So by reading through a book and saying, okay, this is exactly how you're supposed to say it, there I had the confidence. And now when I speak to someone, I can say, okay, confidently can speak. I basically reaffirmed a lot of the stuff that I'd learned.
I use reaffirmation a lot too. Like I always touch up on stuff. But I do have to appreciate like media, especially YouTube. Because YouTube, with me learning my languages, I watch a lot of videos in Spanish and French, German, things like that. So YouTube, because Duolingo and because all of like the language books don't teach you how to speak like colloquially and like, from person to person and not so like formal, I guess. YouTube kind of teaches me how to use those colloquial terms and kind of teaches me, how people actually talk, because in English, people don't talk, like so proper all the time. It's not like that at all. So, especially like with friends and like with relatives, they don't talk, professionally, like they're talking to a boss or something. So, and especially on YouTube, especially this channel called Damon and Joe, I've been subscribed to them since middle school. And Damon and Joe, they're basically, it's basically like this American, like they're best friends and they travel around the world and stuff. So it's basically, a white American, he's from Indiana, and then this Brazilian girl, she's from Brazil, but she moved to America when she was like 5 or something. So yeah, she's Brazilian, and they speak English, Spanish, French. I think those are the languages that they speak together. but each of them speak like individual languages. Like the Damon, he speaks German, and yeah, I think that's what he speaks. Other than that, and then Joe, she speaks like Greek and stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. But basically, they just help a lot with like just teaching certain stuff that books wouldn't teach you. Like in French, they taught me in French that because with Duolingo, like when you use negation in French, they say je n'aime pas or what je ne veux pas. But they taught me that like normal French speakers, they don't use ne like that. They really don't use it. They just kind of kind of omit it. So they say like je veux pas or je veux
yeah,
pas.
like je ne sais pas or je sais pas. That's what because also the way they speak when I go to Switzerland, I've been there to see my relatives. They live in a pretty like rural area, so the way they speak is very different. Like like je ne sais pas, je sais pas is usually what they say. Petit instead of petit, they say petit. There's a lot of that cutting the words down, but that happens in every language. In Spanish, there are different accents.
Yeah.
Mexican is probably Mexican Spanish, that accent is probably in Latin America the easiest to understand, just because it's so clear. There's a lot of the articulation is clear. I like all Hispanic accents. I think they're all cool and interesting in their own way, and I like studying them. But probably that's why the go-to for teachers is the Mexican Spanish, because it's just so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too. Even though I'm Mexican and I've always wanted to like learn, the Mexican kind of the Mexican dialect of speaking Spanish. It's just I don't know what's like gotten into my brain or something, but like BuzzFeed, like what Pero Like is?
Pero Like, I think I've seen them. It's on. I think I've seen that on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on BuzzFeed. Yeah, YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
I've
seen that.
And there's this guy, his name is Gabriel, and he's
he's Dominicano.
Yeah,
Gadiel, I know him, and he's always talking about his mango and all that. Yeah.
He's Dominicano, so he speaks with like a Dominican accent. I guess that kind of rubbed off on me, because with me, I don't really speak Mexican Spanish. My Spanish is just kind of a jumble of everything that I've heard. But with him, I kind of noticed it like, what do I say? Like when I say, like como estás, but I don't say estás. I say como estás, or like
¿Qué lo que?
Yeah. Well, I don't even really say I don't say greetings in Spanish. Because I don't talk to anyone in Spanish. But basically like because in Dominican, I guess they kind of omit some of the S's, and that's what he does too when he speaks Spanish. So I guess that rubbed off on me somehow. So it's just like sometimes I say what. ¿Cómo estás? Or like, what do I say? No estoy, yo no estoy or something like that, instead of este. But I guess that just rubbed off on me from him, because he's really the only reason I can really kind of conjure up or like remember why I speak like that. But yeah, like with YouTube and media, that's had a profound impact in the way I speak other languages too. Even with like Argentinian Spanish, I feel like I have some, there's some resemblance there, because I've heard some of it on YouTube. There's some resemblance there, but I don't really hear it, but I'm sure other people would. But yeah.
Yeah. I'd say probably the Puerto Rican accent, Puerto Riqueño with all the L's instead of R's, the carne asada.
Yeah.
I developed that a lot because of the music I listened to starting around freshman year high school. All I listened to was reggaeton and bachata, so Latin trap. So, Bad Bunny, Arcángel, all these different reggaetoneros, Daddy Yankee, and I kind of developed that accent in a way, but it's more of a voluntary thing. I can decipher between whether I want to talk like that, or I want to talk like Cubano, Puerto Riqueño, or if I want to talk like Mexicano. And my mom isn't really, she doesn't really like that. She doesn't like it when I cut the words and stuff. She's like, that's, así no debes hablar. Yeah, my mom, like, she does not like it when I do that. My dad, he's Spanish, so my whole grandma and all that side, you know, they la theta and all, they pronounce it very differently. That is hard for me to understand. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Like when I go to Spain and then they start talking, that is a lot harder for me to understand. I have to ask twice.
Oh yeah, Spain. Yeah, Spain is just, it's like almost like a different language. Honestly, like
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Barcelona y what see, I don't know. I just can't think of any Spanish words after it, but you know, they just and vosotros and all of that, and like vosotros y estáis yeah, it's just a lot to like kind of take in, and especially it's just like you have to learn that type of Spanish on your own. It's not like you can learn Spanish and then it's not like you can learn Latin American Spanish and then be able to understand. I mean, you would be able to understand Spain Spanish, but you know, there would have to be some practice with it. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, with how you said like it was kind of voluntary for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, with me, I mean, I never really think about what accent I'm speaking in, but it's just, I guess it's kind of involuntary that I speak like como Dominicano and stuff like that. Something that I've heard a lot, like a cut word, I guess, like ba. I don't really use it.
Okay, we use that one even in Mexico. Like my family, ba is something that my family, they use it. My mom uses it too.
Yeah, I don't really use it. I don't really use it. I hear it a lot though. And I don't really even know its meaning like that. I think isn't it like a choca papada?
Yeah, it's like vamos pa'l baño or something like that. Like vamos pa'l cine, vamos.
Yeah.
Vamos. There, I'm already cutting the word. But yeah, pa. Yeah, that's. Yeah. But it's cutting the word. But in Portuguese, there are tons of, you know, you cut the words there too a lot. You omit a lot of there are a lot of conjunctions, and in French too. In French, like grammatically, there are a lot of conjunctions, but also outside of that, they shorten the words even more, which can make it hard to understand. But Spanish in Spain, like for me, it's hard to understand when I have a grandma who literally has that accent. My dad has developed a Mexican accent, so for him, most people, they're shocked because they're like, what the heck, he has a Mexican accent. They think he's like some really white Mexican. But then even though he's half Spanish, and my grandma, who's his mom, she's very, she looks Arab. She looks Arab, which is common for a lot of people in Spain because, you know, in Granada, their kingdom, they had Moors there. And a lot of people think she's Persian or Arab, and that's common. The accent that she has, it's pretty, she has an accent, but I can understand it. But still, when I go to Spain, it's so hard because they cut the words. And then when they start doing the th, la theta, it's just, and they speak with their vowels are less open, I feel. Like they close, their mouth doesn't move as much. It just, así es como hablan, y tienen como una, how do I say it? Like, they kind of have a lisp in a way, like así con el, la se, así es como lo pronuncian. So it's interesting. I like it too. All of it it's like a different language in a way, but it's cool. It's like, I feel like comparing British English to American English, it's a little bit easier to understand those two compared to Spanish.
Yeah. Spain Spanish and Latin American Spanish I feel like are way more distinct than British English and American English. But they're way more distinct because like British English and American English still have like the same words basically, just different names for items and stuff. But I do find it like, you know, it's kind of amazing too because you have touched on like the Moors and the Arabs and stuff, and because of that too, because of like the Moors entering Spain and stuff, and you know, kind of not assimilating, I guess forcing their culture. That's not really forcing. I don't know how it went down, but it's kind of like assimilating their culture with Spain's and stuff. You know, we get a lot of words from Arabic, like
hola.
We get el aceite. What?
Alacrán, I think I saw.
Yeah, alacrán. La
blusa. I think I've seen the video you saw. If that's where you're getting it from, I've seen that one. Blusa, alacrán, aceite. Then also, but yeah, ojalá, like God willingly, Allah, right at the end of the
Yeah.
the word. So yeah, there's been a lot
Yeah,
of
I learned. Yeah, I looked that up on Spanish dictionary because I was just wondering like what hallelujah or something like something along those lines. So that's what I learned it from. But I don't know how like what you've experienced, but I just never really heard anybody say ojalá. Like, have you
ojalá.
really heard that? Yeah.
Uh, yeah, all the time. Like my mom
Yeah, I
says
don't
it all
really
the
hear
time.
it.
Ojalá. No, yeah, all the. Yeah, I guess when you're more, you know, when you're around more people who speaking Spanish all the time, you hear a lot of these more colloquial things, like ojalá all the time. Yeah, but you know that's just how it is. Friend, how do you think French was for you? Like going from you started with Spanish and then you decided to go to French, right? Was that how it
Um,
went?
well, okay, my like original intentions like what 3, 4, 5 years ago was to go from Spanish and then to go to French, but
Mhm.
French I just wasn't picking it up, so I went from Spanish to German. So German is my third language.
Okay. And
Yeah, and
French.
then
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, so German is my third language, and then French is my fourth.
Mhm.
Basically, that's like the fourth. I guess that's the fourth language that I'm the best at. It's kind of categorize my languages in like hierarchy. So English I'm most fluent, then Spanish is below that, French. I mean no German, and then French and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. I understand the hierarchy. Like for me, yeah, English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian below, because I started learning Italian before I started learning Portuguese.
Yeah,
It was around eighth grade. I wanted to learn a new language, and I got on Duolingo. That was when I started using Duolingo to learn Italian.
yeah,
And Italian it's pretty hard. They have like literally the most contractions out of any
yeah,
of the Romance languages, and it's very similar to French, I'd say. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that it's very most similar to Spanish because the pronunciation is very
yeah,
similar. But
hmm
I strongly disagree because the passé composé in French is very similar to the past tense in Italian, and it's not the same as in Spanish. So Italian is it's hard, but it's kind of similar to French. So I think that's helped me a lot. It's like a mix of French and Spanish in a way. Spanish pronunciation wise and French grammatically. But in the end, I didn't have as much motivation to learn it. My mom spent some. She learned a little bit of Italian at school, I think. But for me, I didn't have as much motivation. Like Portuguese, the reason why I was able to do it was because of the music and the cultural aspect. Italian culture is amazing, but I wasn't as motivated as with Portuguese. That's the difference.
hmm
And I honestly, Italian, I would love to know Italian just as much as Portuguese, but I feel like Portuguese has more use also if you're talking about in the modern day world, Portuguese,
hmm
because, you have those, I don't know, is it like 200 million people who live in Brazil? And then you have Angola and you have Portugal, a lot more people who speak Portuguese than Italian. And,
hmm
for businesses, when I get older, when I'm working, that's going to help a lot. And also, I don't understand why there's no AP Portuguese class. That's one thing I don't get. We have AP Latin, which I don't really get too much the purpose of that. Like I'm Catholic, and yes, we have Latin in the church and stuff, but other than like legal terms or logical fallacies and stuff, I don't see really the purpose of learning all that stuff. Could
Yeah,
you
well they do
explain to that?
Latin. I guess no one speaks Latin. Latin is a dead language, obviously. But Latin, I guess they do it. I don't know what the reason for doing it is, but I guess they do it because Latin does, or like I guess law and medicine, they use a lot of Latin prefixes and suffixes. So like what something like trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but something like what cardio, yeah,
Yeah.
cardio, something like that, like the cardiological, which is stuff to do with the heart. That comes from coron. I don't know what the word in Latin is,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
know.
like in Spanish is corazón, and
Corazón. Yeah.
yeah, in French it's
Cœur.
I don't know what it is in French.
Cœur. Cœur.
Yeah,
And then in Portuguese, coração. So it's those, I understand those roots. So I feel like I still don't understand really the purpose. I'm like, if you're going to go into these fields, you're going to have to know them anyway, but why make a whole and do they even speak it? I feel like they have a different AP test structure, right? Isn't it different?
I'm sure it is. I don't think they speak it because there's not really anybody around that speaks it to like kind of get a foundation of how you're supposed to speak the language. So I don't think anyone does speak it. But I think, it does help in terms of like going into medicine and going into law. But, just learning any Latin language, any Romance language that has derived from Latin, you can kind of get the gist of that. Like Spanish, like me speaking Spanish, and then me going into these medical programs, and then because like in these medical programs we get taught by medical students, and we get taught by basically practicing physicians, and I've even shadowed cardiologists and stuff here and there. So just having that kind of background knowledge, I always am able to make connections between what this word is and how it derives from Latin, because I speak Spanish, and just getting that word, I guess, it's easy to make a connection if you already speak a Romance language. So I guess Latin is not necessary, but it is still helpful if you do want to go into medicine or law. It's just as helpful as Spanish or French or Italian and stuff like that.
Yeah. One thing I definitely want you to speak about or comment on is Swahili, why you chose to learn that language, or why you're currently learning it, and how it's impacted you in your life.
Okay, Swahili is relatively recent. I started learning Swahili in May, like late May / early June. But basically I noticed that what did I notice? Basically I noticed that I speak all of these European languages like English, Spanish, German, French, but there's never really any education on any African languages. And that might be because, there's like more than 1,000. I don't know if there's more than 1,000. There's a lot of African languages basically, especially with distinct tribes and stuff like that. So, there's not much to learn about African languages because they're all spread out. It's not as like, in Europe you have English, German, Spanish, and French. There's way more to it than like European languages or like Asian languages. But Swahili on Duolingo, Swahili is like the only African language. And I kind of wanted to just, I guess, in the sense of connecting, like I said, like connecting back to my roots with Spanish and things like that. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. But yeah, connecting back to like my Latin roots with Spanish, I kind of, even though I don't know like what my African roots are, I could be Sub-Saharan African, I could be North African, I could be West African, I don't know. But Swahili, it kind of, connects me back to those roots also, even though it's like, it's a very extensive, it's very, in the past where those roots come from. Because how, slavery started in like 1500s, and ever since then, we've been separated from that past ever since. But yeah, I guess that's kind of it. I guess just like the desire to learn an African language, a desire to learn a language other than a European language, or other than an Asian language or stuff like that. Like even in my language learning experience, like I've dabbled and dabbled, not just in the languages I speak, but I've dabbled and dabbled everywhere, basically just trying to find the next language to learn and stuff like that. So,
I've done that too.
I've like set my foot in like Korean, Russian, even Portuguese. But Portuguese was like for like 3 days, so I don't really know any of Portuguese other than like obrigado and stuff like that. Portuguese. What else?
I tried Arabic. Arabic is hard. Like the reason I did it was because I have a whole bunch of friends who speak Arabic, so I was like, okay, I might want to learn this, but damn, it's hard. And one thing though, like I tried. One of my goals is to speak. Well, I was like, I want to speak all the Romance languages because I really like them. But it's hard because they're within the Romance languages. There's so many. There's Sardinian. There's is it Corsican, or I don't know how to say, but like in Corsica. Then there's Catalan. You have Occitan. Then you have Walloon in Occitan and Walloon in France, and Romanian. I tried Romanian for 2 seconds, but I was like, you know what? I'd rather stick with Portuguese and Italian. Hopefully, those will be better. But so you said you started learning in Swahili in May. One thing that makes for me the Romance languages easier to learn is because of all the cognates. You get por qué, porque, pourquoi. So it's just those cognates make it a lot easier to learn. So I'm guessing that there are like basically there are no cognates with Swahili.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the challenge. That's the main challenge that I have with learning Swahili. There's no cognates. There's no there's no words that you can kind of remember because they have like a certain suffix or they have a certain prefix. There's nothing of that at all. So basically, with learning Swahili, I feel like I'm learning my first foreign language. So yeah, basically, that's that. That's what that is. But with Swahili too, Swahili does. I guess Swahili has like a relatively basic grammatical structure, has a relatively basic syntax. Even though there's like stuff, there's things like basically, with certain sentences like we are swimming or nosotros estamos nadando. There's 3 words to it. There's a subject, a verb, and a object. But with Swahili, those are all combined into one word, and you have to kind of manipulate it. So like ninapenda, ninapenda is we are cooking. No, ninapenda is I am cooking. So like me is I, na means like now, it means like am, like the present tense, and then penda means to cook. So it's just one word. So things just like that. It's just it's very different.
Okay, so I guess our interview or conversation is basically, it's coming to a close. Thank you so much for spending the last hour speaking with me. It's been really fun. Keep learning your languages because language learning is key. Yeah, do you have any final comments?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And basically, if you are going to learn a language, or if you are going to, I don't know. I said and. If you're just going to learn a language, it's just not the language. It's also, the culture that's involved, learning stuff like that, because you don't get you don't get that, I guess, global perspective unless you learn about the culture also. The language is just one part. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. And one more question. Do you plan on studying abroad in college?
Yeah, definitely. My junior year, I'm planning, I'm not sure if I'm going to go to Europe or Asia yet, but I'm planning to go to France or stuff like that. So yeah, I'm planning on just that, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. Really, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you too. Thank you so much.